Hello, my name is S.K. Williams, and this is my Wednesday video. I actually made two of these, because I don't know if the other one will go up. I don't have free speech on this platform. Whenever I post comments lately, most of them don't go through. And I've learned that on the two of you, if you're flagged as an offender, they put stronger restrictions on you, and you're monitored more closely. You're not really monitored by a human, though. You're monitored by Al Gore and his rhythm. And it's really becoming frustrating, because at first I had trouble just loading videos, but now I have trouble in the comment section as well. And I've been given several 24-hour bans when I'm saying less hateful things than the people I'm responding to, simply because the tube of you has decided that right-wing fascists are trying to take over society and have a very strongly liberal narrative, which, even after the attempted assassination of Donald Trump, which incidentally allows me to say the name Donald Trump without having my videos flagged like they have been for the last few months, I have been able to say certain things, both on the comment sections and in videos that I post online to this platform. But I'm still restricted. And I'm more restricted than most people, especially since I'm a repeat offender. The problem is that I don't even, most of the time, know what comment is deemed so offensive. The last 24-hour ban I incurred, I didn't even make comments to the one group that one could potentially see as hateful, militant atheists. The sort of atheist that, of course, says, "There's no such thing as militant atheists. We atheists are so peaceful. We're not killing people." Of course, all these atheists do is criticize Christianity in the harshest possible terms, which is militant. It's describing a militant behavior. They used to call themselves militant atheists. Then they decided to change history and claim that militant atheism was a term invented by theists to demonize atheists. It's silly, especially considering that in the real world, atheists have taken to burning down churches and shooting churches up. Hate crimes against Christians are up considerably in various European countries and across the European Union as a whole, in Britain and in North America. You can look at places like the FBI website with its hate index, or the equivalent of those agencies in Canada, or the European Union, or in Britain, or Pan-Europe, which includes Britain for some reason. And it will show anti-Christian hate crimes have gone up, often, depending upon location, as high as 200%. And that atheists are quite willing to enact violence against Christians. And sorry for the weird noises. I'm hoping to avoid certain problems. Still, the point is, atheists are generally left-wing in our modern society, and that's because atheism largely grew from the progressive movement and from the Enlightenment. And that means that, far from being the mere lack of belief in a God, nothing more, nothing less, they keep saying now to get out of the burden of proof, the modern atheist movement has always been more closely tied to the progressive and left-wing politics of the day. That's why when atheists say that because the word atheism is defined as a lack of belief in a God and is not an ideology, then that means that atheists are all over the place politically, and you can't tell what their political positions are. Unlike religious people, who the overwhelming majority of will be conservative, because they read religious texts and obey them, and the religious texts are conservative. So that's why the majority of religious people are conservative and have no diversity, whilst atheists are diverse and you can never tell what position they're on. The truth is, of course, even if I have to accept the modern parlance in which atheism is the opposite of religion and atheists are not religious people, The idea that atheists are more diverse in their political opinions than religious people are, and that religious people, because of their religious texts that they follow, are overwhelmingly conservative, and atheists, on the other hand, can be either conservative or liberal because atheism is a mere lack of belief in a god. It makes no sense to say that, since in the real world, atheists are less politically diverse than religious people. Atheists are even less politically diverse than specific religious groups like Christians. Atheists are even less diverse than evangelical Christians, who are supposed to be the farthest of the far-right Christians, the Reich wing, the Nazis who would follow Adolf Hitler. Because if you actually look at Pew Study, for instance, 69% of atheists vote Democrat. And the majority that don't vote Democrat, the 31% that don't vote Democrat, it's not like all 31% of those vote Republican. In fact, most don't. Only about 10%, off the top of my head, I can't remember exactly, vote Republican. The majority of those who don't vote Democrat are independent, and the majority of those independents are liberal. The modern-day atheist movement was always more about politics than it was about merely lacking belief in a god, or about being rational and believing in science. And it was always posited as a counter to the religious right. And the simple truth of the matter is, a lot of people on the left hate Christianity, whether or not they're atheists, and a lot of them are atheists, or at least say they are. And while you don't have to be a militant atheist to be on the left wing, you don't even have to be a militant atheist to be an atheist, it's very hard to argue against the fact that secularists really are hostile toward religion and religious speech, especially those of Christians. When you have people like Yuval Noah Harari saying that in a secular society you'll be free to go to whatever silly rituals run by people with funny hats you want, or pray to whatever sky daddy you want. You can even live the way you want by your values, so long as they don't conflict with secular values. If your religious values conflict with secular values, then you should be willing to lay aside your religious values and go with the secular. They don't really give a reason why the secular values should win every single time if they conflict with religious values, other than the horror stories that if you mix religion and government, you get a theocracy, which is always bad. It's tyrannical. Mixing religion and government leads to authoritarianism. Only secularism gives us freedom. But keep in mind, they also tell you this line that secularism is nothing but neutrality toward religion, and it obviously can't be just neutrality toward religion. If secularism has values we're supposed to hold to, and those values can come into conflict with your religious values. If secularism has a set of values that actively compete with religious values, and even conflict with them, then the idea that secularism is just neutrality toward religion is just absurd. It's obvious that secularism is itself a form of religion, even though we're not allowed to say that, and we have to think of secular people as the opposite of religious people. The simple truth of the matter is, we are having a new religion forced on us, under the guise of it not being a religion, and under the pretense that religion, if it's allowed to have any sort of social sway, creates a dreaded theocracy in which no one has rights or freedoms except the ruling class, and we would have a real-life Handmaid's Tale. It would be like Iran and Saudi Arabia, only under Christian Sharia law if we let the churches in America take over. Ah, the tyranny. But let's face reality. It isn't Christians that are threatening free speech. It's the secularists. It's not the right that is imposing authoritarian control on people. It's the left. It's not the right or the conservative Christians who are threatening violence and enacting real violence. It's the left. The person who shot Donald Trump was a left-winger who supported Biden, for instance, even though he was a registered Republican. And even though there are a lot of oddities in that with the security grid that still haven't been quite resolved to anyone's satisfaction. And keep in mind, I don't really like talking too much about politics. I'm doing so more now simply because we're living through unprecedented times and it's definitely historic. But even then, most of the time my videos don't go up because my channel is a small YouTube channel and because humans don't actually run the system. It's run by Al Gore and his rhythm, and the way Al Gore functions, there are certain values assigned to certain other values, and it does basically a mathematical equation. And I can't explain to you in exact detail what this is because it's too complex, and frankly, I don't necessarily understand all of it myself. And even if I did, it would take too long to explain, but to give you an idea, Al Gore values certain things more than others. Pre-existing channels that existed before the set of rules that it's using to determine the value of certain things that managed to get large audiences will largely have their audience taken into account because the tube of you is still a business and it relies on things like ad revenue and other sources of revenue that are generated by those large viewerships. So, large channels are sometimes just fully exempt from the rules, or at the very least, are more lightly applied, the rules are, to them. And sorry for the oddities of speech, but as noted, I speak weirdly to avoid certain complications. But the point that I'm making here is, even when large channels that are run by conservatives, or who they think of as conservatives, because we live in a system that's very binary when it comes to labeling people, they will be punished less severely than small channels. They would rather prevent a small channel like mine from growing and becoming popular because they see me as a far right-wing conservative threat. And even though there are far right-wing conservative threats that are popular and they're not doing this too, they would rather limit the number that grow after that. What's more, they do punish the right-wing channels even if they're big. They monitor them, they hit them with demonetizations. But the bigger you are, the more light these punishments are. They also shadow ban people. Now keep in mind, I'm not saying my channel would be huge by now if not for the evil tube of you. I've been ill a while and I didn't make a lot of videos. My house burned down a few years ago. And there are a few other issues. Sometimes it's just luck, and for all I know, I'm just not a very good video maker. I'm not going to say I am. I'm not going to pretend that if the system were actually fair, or at least more fair, that I would have a big channel. Even if it was unfair the other way, I'm not saying I'd have a big channel. But I am saying I don't really have much of a chance, and I get hit with a lot of strikes. I get hit with a lot of limitations. Now, my channel doesn't have any strikes on it now because I remove the videos. Or simply don't load them if I get warned when I schedule them. But of late, they've also been removing my comments or not letting them go through, allowing people to say whatever anti-Christian hate they want, since I mostly defend Christianity from the hate that it gets. But even in the wake of the Olympic Games' open mockery of Christianity in the Last Supper, I have had a 24-hour ban on my account, and I have from commenting, and I can't just post what I want without my posts vanishing. I don't have free speech. The system wants to punish me because I'm not towing the party line of their liberal progressive values. And keep in mind, even though the system sees me as wearing a MAGA hat and supporting Donald Trump and being all in on Nazism and wanting factism in America, Most of us Donald Trump supporting MAGA hat wearers aren't actually factists and don't want a new Nazi Germania, a new Adolf Hitler. And what's more, I'm not a MAGA hat wearing Republican who's supporting Donald Trump. I do think in this particular election Donald Trump is a better candidate, but it's not because I think he's a new messiah and I'm worshiping him. I realize he has a lot of moral problems, and I don't necessarily agree with all of his policies. I just think he's a better choice than Kamala Harris. Not that it matters, because ultimately, I don't vote. I'm a bloody monarchist. I believe in having a monarchy, and I put my money where my mouth is. I don't participate in the Freemasonic republic that is America. I will say if I voted it would have to be for Trump, but that's only because of the circumstances involved. If another better candidate came along, even if that candidate was Democrat, I'd go with him. But even when Joe Biden was in the race, as much as the mythology around him was that he was a moral man next to Trump, he really wasn't moral if you know what he did, and I can't tell you without this video not going up. But that's the point. I don't tell people who to vote for. I don't tell people who to like, politically. But I am still listed as a far-right winger who wants a new Nazi Germania. I'm still listed as some dread theocrat. And it's getting old. It really is. I don't even fit in their little narrative bubble. For instance, even though I'm a far right-wing MAGA supporter who hates immigrants, I'm perfectly okay with immigrants. I'm not racist. I even think we should have free health care. But I'm a far right-winger who doesn't care about the poor. Because I'm a Christian, and I make Christian content. The system we have is fundamentally broken. The simple truth of the matter is, the system we have is not fair. And we need the tube of you, Gaggle, and other tech companies to stop being so restrictive on people who don't toe their party line. I don't have much else to say, so thank you, God bless, and goodbye.